draw money.
Hey, you know what?
And I still do.
Al, here in the Chattosphere that we got going on, we got a guy by the name of Curryhead, and he wants me to ask you, what is the 7 deadly steps of a wrestling match?
Well, the 7 deadly steps are probably one of the worst things that has ever happened to professional wrestling.
Okay.
It is a formula that is being taught to absolutely everybody, whether they be in WWE or TNA or the independents. And like I told you guys, wrestling's an art form. It's not a science. You don't do it just. It's not. You remember paint by numbers pictures?
Oh, of course, I do them right now, actually.
Yeah. Well, there's a black background with a white, form of, any different number of things. A country scene, a horse, a cow, and, the corresponding numbers for different spots on the picture. Red was 1, 2 was yellow, 3 was green. Anybody could do it. But you never saw, as pretty as one of those pictures might be, you never saw one of those pictures hanging in a museum. And the reason why is because it wasn't done by an artist. And, when you looked at a picture in a museum, the reason they were there was it was done with your heart, with passion. And when you look at it, it evokes an emotion. It evokes a feeling, an idea. Well, with wrestling, it's pretty much the same way. Wrestling matches are done with passion from your heart. You got to feel what you're doing when you're thinking out there. And you do it with the 7 deadly steps, which are taught to all of the guys now. Then the problem is, 1, if you have 10 matches on the card, they are 10 of the exact same match over and over again. All you got to do is change the guy. A couple of the moves might be different. A few of the what they call high spots might be different. But it's the same match. It feels the same. It's so plastic. It's so fake.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sell tickets. People want to feel something.
Right.
The other problem is that it has nothing to do with what a wrestler is really supposed to be out there trying to do. A heel's job is to get a babyface over. A babyface's job is to get over. Now, the term get over means to make the audience want to be you, to emulate you, to live vicariously through you, okay?
That emotional attachment, caring about the character.
Think of it this way. If you're walking down the street and you see me set a car on fire, okay, you're probably just going to dial 911. If you're walking down the street and you see me setting your car on fire, you're probably going to run across the street and try and kick my rear end.
That's a great analogy.
If you're walking down the street and you see me setting your car on fire with your family and your dog in it, you're probably going to run across the street and try and kill me.
Yeah.
Think of a wrestling match. The babyface is your car, okay?
Yeah.
Babyface is trying to be your car with your family in it. The heel is trying to make the babyface your car with your family in it so that you care about the babyface. Because if you don't care about the babyface, no matter what the heel does, he's never going to get any true heat. And if he never gets any true heat, you're never going to actually sell tickets. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, okay? The problem with the 7 deadly steps is that the guys go out there and they try to do these things called, the step 1 is to shine the babyface. Shine the babyface is where the babyface does 2 or 3 spots where he bumps the heel around.
Mm-hmm.
Step 2 is where now the heel does a bigger, it's called the heat spot. That's where he cuts off the babyface. And it basically is where the heel will do a bigger, stronger, more aggressive, kick-ass move than what the 3 high spots were that the babyface did in his shine.
Yeah.
Well, now, who does the audience want to be? We want to be the heel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, what does that make the heel? It makes the heel the babyface. And the babyface somebody that we don't want to be because the babyface is laying there selling like he's a slug on the very place that he can lose on the mat.
Yeah.
Well, there's one problem. Step 3 is now the heel gets his supposed heat. That's where he does his 2 or 3 high spots, which are always much more cooler, kick-ass, and much more aggressive than what the babyface did in his shine. which now simply reinforces the fact that we much more want to be the heel than we do want to be the babyface. And the babyface just continues to sell like a slug laying on the mat because he thinks that's his way of showing that he's hurt. Step 4 is now, of course, the hope spot. But at this point in time, for the audience, 9 times out of 10, we just hope that you finish the match and go home. Unfortunately, you're not going to. So the hope spot is that, we're going to hope that you're going to rally some kind of offense. The babyface is going to rally some kind of offense and make a comeback. But a comeback from what? And we're hoping for what? Because we don't want to be the babyface anyway, so there's no hope for him anyhow. Mm-hmm. But he's going to do it, which results in the heel again doing something even bigger and stronger and more aggressive and cutting the babyface off one more time, which thus reinforces the fact we want to be the heel even more and the babyface even less. Have we gotten any real heat yet? No, of course not. And what really actually sells tickets? Heat. But, hey, who cares about that? As long as we do our steps and we get our spots in, that's all that matters.
Right.
Step 5. We always have to do some kind of double down, or one guy misses a move and we're both now selling. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the heel who has had all of the offense for the last 5 or 6 minutes and been doing all this kick-ass stuff is now selling just as bad as the babyface has been doing, and he was the one who had the offense. But now he's just as dead as the babyface was for selling for 10 minutes. Well, now we don't want to be either one of you because you're both a bunch of wussies. We don't want to be either of you. We don't want to be the heel. We don't want to be the babyface. But we need to continue on because we got to make sure we get all our steps in. We got to get all our spots in. So step 6. Step 6 is now where we do the comeback. The comeback, of course, results in not just where it becomes a fight. The babyface has had it off, and now he's just going to kick the heel's butt. Nah, it's going to be where the heel jumps up off the mat, runs at the babyface with his hands down at his arms down at his waist like he's a retarded penguin, and he's going to get punched in the head. The heel's going to take 1 bump, 2 bumps, 3 bumps, back up into the ropes conveniently so the babyface can now grab the outstretched hand of the heel, shoot him across the ropes, and give him one big move. And now, finally, after 10 minutes in the ring, we're going to finally attempt to do the one thing we were supposed to be trying to do the entire time. We're going to try to win the first pinfall of the match.
Yeah, the first.
And therefore, it means nothing.
Right.
Which really leads us to step 7, which are, of course, inevitably false finishes, which aren't false because we've never taught the audience that we're really trying to win. And the false finishes lead to the finish, which means nothing.
Wow.
That's the problem with 7 deadly steps, and it's done everywhere all the time.
I feel like I just watched the TNA X Division match or like a cruiserweight match, but yeah, I've been seeing that for years. You're right.
Don't put the heat on TNA.
No, there's no heat on.
You can put it on any promotion there is.
Yeah.
Every wrestler does that.
Yeah, Dave said except for GLCW, of course.
But
because aren't you the current heavyweight champion there?
Listen, 27 years ago I was taught this fact, and it's become more true now than ever before. Anybody can put on a pair of tights and a pair of boots and call themselves a professional wrestler. Not just anybody can be a professional worker. It's the same as anybody can be a painter, but not everybody can be an artist. Okay?
Yeah.
And now, these days, there are far, far, far more wrestlers than there are any workers left in the business.
Very good point and profound. I mean, you really just summed up a lot of the problems right now out in the business, and so much going on, and so much. A lot of people say that the business has been forced into doing that due to the short attention span of a lot of viewers out there and the evolving.
Listen, as far as the short attention span of the viewers are concerned, so what?
No.
The wrestlers, the workers, are the ones who work the marks. Okay? You never let the marks work you. The unfortunate situation is that now the marks have worked the wrestlers, and there are more marks in the business than there ever have been before, and more marks are running the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad thing is, listen, as much as knowledgeable as you are, and I respect everything that you guys know. You probably know more about professional wrestling than I do. And that is not seriously, that is not a joke. The problem is, though, you guys don't have experience.
Right.
It's no different than like Siskel and Ebert, tremendous critics of movies and Hollywood. But have they ever, one, acted in one, or two, ever produced one or directed one or anything in regards to actually doing it? No. So therefore, how many of the people in Hollywood do you honestly believe allow Siskel and Ebert or any other movie critic to dictate to them what kind of movie and how they market it?
Not many at all.
They don't.
No,
right,
they try to manipulate it after the fact, but that's about it.
Well, in wrestling, unfortunately, every single wrestler now, and if you don't believe me, have a few of them call in. Ask them, when you show up at a building, what do you want to do? Well, I want to have the best match on the show. Really? Well, that's the stupidest thing you could do, because you shouldn't want to have the best match on the show, and that's where things have changed, guys. It's not having the best match on the show is the goal of the wrestler. It's having the match that sells the most tickets, and those don't always go hand in hand. Take, for instance, and I always use this as a great example. You all watched WrestleMania 3, am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was the best match on the show?
Steamboat Savage?
Yeah, I was going to say Steamboat Savage.
I say questioning because
Steamboat Savage. Exactly. Everybody says that. Do you know how stupid that is? And you know why? Because 93,000 people didn't pay to see Savage and Steamboat.
No, they paid for Hogan Andre.
Right. So who had the best match on the show?
Well, see, the best wrestling match on the show was clearly Steamboat Savage. The best match, the money match on the show was clearly the main.
If wrestling matches sold tickets, you guys, then the amateur wrestling would be selling out all over the United States.
Sure.
And it's not.
Sure.
And here's the problem, knuckleheads. If we're trying to have the best match on the show, everybody's trying to have the best match on the show, well, guess what? We're not worried about how many tickets we're selling. And if we're not worried about how many tickets we're selling and you don't sell tickets, how are you ever going to be able to afford to run a show to continue to have that best match?
Yeah.
It's far more important to have the match that sells the most tickets than it is to have the match that's the best one on the show. And here's why. How do you know you had the best match on the show?
By the number of tickets sold. Number of people there.
You
the amount of money.
for Damian
No, wait, what do you mean?
You wait for Dave Meltzer to report about it.
That's exactly right. The only way that you as a professional wrestler know that you had the best match on the show is if a critic now says you had the best match on the show. Am I not right?
Oh, we did it tonight when we were talking about TNA's Against All Odds.
So how did everybody know that Savage and Steamboat had the best match on the show? Well, everybody said that they did. But that is not how the business was set up. The business was set up to have the match that sells the most tickets. And that right there, my boys, was where the business started to change. The focus became more about having that pat on the back from the critics than it was about having the match that put the most asses in the seats. You could have the greatest wrestling match in the history of wrestling, ever.
Yeah.
Even back in the Carnival days. Better than that. But if you're in a building that seats 5,000 people and only 200 showed up to see it, how great was it? Not to mention, next month you ran the same building. And instead of 200 people, 85 showed up.
Yeah.
But you know what? Everybody said it was the greatest match in the history of wrestling. But fewer people showed up to see it. If it was so great, instead of 200 people, why didn't 5,000 people show up to see it?
I mean, you're preaching. I mean, yeah. I mean,
I respect your guys' opinion, but let me ask you this.
Okay.
Have any of you had any medical training whatsoever?
None. I've played the doctor on TV before, but no medical training.
Okay.
No medical
when
training.
If you were to go and have surgery at the hospital, would any of you right now think to tell the surgeon how to operate on it?
Oh, absolutely not.
No, not at all.
It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
You're correct.
But then why is it okay Or does it make sense that a wrestler rely on your opinion to tell him how to do his job and make his living?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has happened.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with people having their opinion
right.
and critiquing a show or a match or a pay-per-view because you paid your money. You're absolutely entitled to do it.
Right.
But if you've never once done, not just done it, but done it to try to make a living, to feed your family, to keep a roof over your head, then where do you expect that these guys should sit there and take to heart what you say? And now change their entire style to appeal to you,
mm-hmm.
so that you will now continue to give them a great review, because that's what's happened. As more and more of the guys try to get that great review, fewer and fewer of the general fans care to watch what it is that they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, it's because of the economy, it's so terrible.
No.
Really? Well, why is Hollywood continuing to make movies
right.
that sell millions and millions of dollars?
Yep.
Maybe it's because when you pay to see the movie, you get what you paid to see.
Mm-hmm.
If wrestling were giving the audience what they paid to see, do you think they'd continue to show up?
No, not at all.
Yeah, they would if you give them what they paid to see.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misheard that. Yeah, well, I mean, it's right now. While money is tight, people are making more. They're putting more into that decision as to what they do, where that entertainment money is going. Whether it be wrestling, whether it be a movie, whether it be a concert, whatever.
That's always the case. It doesn't matter if money's tight or not. Money's tight now, but think about it. An average guy, an average guy. The average guy makes what, $25,000, $30,000 a year.
Average Joe or man of mystery.
Okay. Yes. Yes. An average guy makes $25,000, $30,000 a year. Are we right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So after taxes and everything like that, what do you think he takes home every 2 weeks?
Maybe $800.
I think less. I think $600.
Yeah.
Okay, $600. So he takes almost $600 every 2 weeks. So by a month, he's got $1,200. He's got a wife and 2 kids. It's going to cost him even if it just costs him $10, only $10, which doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, but it costs him $10 to buy a ticket to a wrestling show. That means that for him, his wife, and his 2 kids, it's $40 right off the bat. $40 out of that $1,200. That sound like maybe he might want to think about what he spends his money on?
Yeah.
And do you think that maybe he might want to make sure that he gets what he paid to see when he goes to a wrestling show?
I agree.
And how is that different now than it was 3 years ago when he was making $30,000 or $25,000 a year, and he had a wife and 2 kids then?
Yeah.
And the only difference now is that a ticket to some of these wrestling shows is $25, $30, $40,
right,
or more.
Right. Well, Al Snow,
So
you have.
How much more important is it to make sure you give the guy what he paid to see? And what he paid to see was to believe in what the work is. And the work is that the only thing that's fake is the outcome. So he's paid to believe that outcome isn't predetermined so that he can then get emotionally involved in what you're doing in the ring, because what you're doing in the ring actually seems to matter because it has a consequence, and the consequence is that somebody could win and somebody could lose, instead of it just being indiscriminate action with paint by numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 step matches. Thank you.
Again, like I said earlier, you were preaching, and you've given great insight. A lot of the fans here in the chat room and on the PWR show shout box are really learning a lot from really the dissection that you've done of the business right now, and for that we obviously appreciate it. And that's why we put forth the effort to bring talents on and simply let them talk and get that word out there, because
educate.
And that's important. I mean, we've had a lot of interviews and we've had a lot of people on this show. And a lot of times it's been, about other things as opposed to what is the going on in professional wrestling, whether it be good or bad at this point in time. And you've really given an insight that we have not seen in a very long time.
And it's actually one of the reasons why, and we have a lot of the marks, if you will, that are on the Internet, in the Internet wrestling community, always talking about Ring of Honor this, Ring of Honor that. to be honest, the reason WWE does what it does is because they put out there who you want to see. You pay to see those big names, and they'll argue about the best wrestling match. Oh, that happens in Ring of Honor, but I'd actually pay to see the guys that are in the top show.
Well, WWE, they're trying to appeal to the largest audience. Think about
Correct.
this, okay, guys? You want to make money, okay? That's what wrestling's about. It's about making money, okay? And the way you make money is you try to sell the most tickets. Now, the way you sell the most tickets is you try to appeal to the largest portion of the audience, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I forget what the population of the United States is.
About 365 million.
365 million. Let's just say it's Milwaukee. Okay, Dave Hero, because you run Milwaukee. What's the population of Milwaukee?
650,000.
650,000. 650,000 people. That's a potential audience of 650,000 people. Okay, and the way that the wrestling business now is geared, you've got a potential audience of 650,000 people. How many people do you think have internet access of that 650,000? Now, keep in mind
75
that
to 80%.
if the internet was as over as it is, then why do they need to go on another medium such as radio or television to tell you how over it is?
Yeah,
you're right.
Okay, so how many people do you think? Let's just say it's half. Let's say it's 325,000. What do you say, guys?
Sure, I'd be higher on the half, but
I think
let's just be generous and say it's 325,000 people in Milwaukee that have internet access.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind that I've been doing this for 27 years, and that this is, and out of 27 years, almost 21, 22 of those 27 years, it's been my sole means of income.
Yeah.
It's been the way I've fed my family. It's the way I've kept a roof over my head. It's the way I've
it's the way you've gotten lost in your house.
Yes, it's that too. Yes, but 21 to 22 years, this is the way I live. This is the way I feed myself. Now, considering that, my internet experience consists of online banking, answering email, an occasional porn site, and buying watches off eBay.
Wait, did you say watching porn on eBay?
Occasional porn site.
Yeah. What did I not mention in that?
Wrestling dirt sheets and wrestling commentary and wrestling in general.
Nothing wrestling at all.
Yeah.
Okay? Nothing. Now, I do it for a living. I've done it for a living and need to do it for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I don't care. I don't go on it.
Yeah.
So if I don't go on it, tell me what a percentage of your audience, of your potential audience of 325,000 people actually go on it and are concerned enough to check the website and to dictate how they spend their money for a wrestling show based upon an opinion of what was the best match and who's the greatest performer.
Less than 5%, less than 2%, less than 1%.
Okay, well now, instead of 650,000 people that you could possibly have at your show, you've now got maybe, 1,000?
Right.
How is that smart business? That makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm. No,
but you're going,
No, you're right. I mean, no, it doesn't. I'm getting yelled at by our producer here. That's why. You're right. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you've got to appeal to the masses. That's what WWE does, obviously. TNA is trying to do as well.
And that was ECW's downfall. That's now what is becoming Ring of Honor's downfall, is that you're trying to appeal to too small an audience. And, yeah, that small audience is going to pat you on the back and tell you how great the matches were and blah, 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 blah. But financially, at the end of the day, when you've made that investment as far as renting a building and investment of TV time and
radio,
newspaper, et cetera, insurance, when you've made all of those investments, you want that money back. And you're not going to get that money back if you're only worried about, instead of 650,000 people, you're worried about only a couple thousand. And WWE is very good at worrying about 650,000 people instead of just a couple thousand, even though they do make the same mistake of allowing too much, a lot of times, that smaller percentage of the audience to dictate a lot of things of what they do. So.
Well, Al Snow, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Sorry, guys, and I apologize for ranting. And
no, you haven't.
No, hey, you know what? Al's a little nervous.
Right, you can tell.
He's getting married this week, you know.
And please understand, guys, it's not because I know everything. I realize I made those mistakes, you know, in my own career, and I know where these mistakes of focusing on the wrong things and trying to have the best match instead of having a match that does good business and sells tickets has cost me a lot of opportunities. So, you know, that's where I, you know, now try to pass that where, hey, look, I screwed up, so, you know, do yourself a favor and don't try to make them same mistakes that I did.
And Al, we will see you next on March 21st back here in Milwaukee at a Great Lakes Championship Wrestling Show. You can get more information for that at
all 650,000 people show up. Come on out
at blizzardbrawl.com. Al, so again, our sincerest appreciation and thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
to the
Al.
Pro Wrestling Report here on 540 ESPN. We've got to take a timeout. Fans, when we come back, we're going to finish out the show, talk a little bit more about wrestling.